On 23 January 2023, the Commission sent you a request for the submission of the 5-year declaration of assets and personal interests. On the 29th of January, you submitted your 5-year declaration. The Commission also asked candidates to voluntarily complete and submit an ethics questionnaire, and you did so on 15 August 2022. The Commission sent you 4 rounds of questions on 10 April, 28 April, 5 May and 18 May 2023, respectively. You were asked a total number of 44 questions, including 89 subparts, and 49 of the questions included a request for further documentation. According to Article 3, Paragraph 4 of the Evaluation Rules of the Commission, a candidate may not provide information, documents, or other materials during the hearing if the Commission requested these earlier and the candidate did not provide them within the specified time, unless, of course, the candidate provides such a sufficient justification. Members of the Commission will now start with asking you questions, and Nona Tsotoria will start with asking questions first. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point, and we ask that your answers be short and to the point as well. Nona, you have the floor.
Greetings, Mrs. Ciobanu, and the issue I'm going to deal with concerns source of funds used by your mother-in-law to make donations to your husband during the period of 2010 and 11. So, according to information available to the Commission, on 24th March 2011, your husband deposited a sum of 57,500 euros into his bank account. On 1st April 2011, your husband withdrew from this account the sum of 57,500 euros and deposited it into one of his other deposit accounts. The Commission asked you to explain the source of funds used by your husband to make the deposit of 57,500 euros to his account. You stated that out of that amount, 20,000 had come from the sale of an apartment in Chisinau, and that your husband received 37,500 euros from his mother. According to the sales purchase contract provided by you, the apartment was sold in 2011 for the price of roughly 330,000 Moldovan leis, which is around 20,000 euros. Your husband had a 50% share of this apartment, with a 25% share belonging to his sibling and 25% share belonging to his mother. In the second round of questions, you were asked to explain why your husband had received the full sales price of 20,000 euros following the sale of the apartment, when your husband had the right of property for only 50% share of this apartment, and therefore 50% of the sales price of 330,000 Moldovan leis received for this apartment. In your answers, you indicated that your mother-in-law and your husband's sibling had contributed their share of the sales price of the apartment towards the construction of a holiday home in which it is planned that your mother-in-law will have her residence once she returns from abroad. You attach a declaration signed on personal responsibility by your mother-in-law and your husband's sibling, to which they indicate that they had renounced their share of the sales price in the apartment and had given it to your husband in order to facilitate the building of the holiday home. The Commission asked you to provide information and confirmation documents regarding the method of payment used by your mother-in-law to transmit to your husband 37,500 euros in 2011. In your answers, you indicated that this sum had been received in cash. You submitted a declaration signed on personal responsibility by your mother-in-law, according to which she indicates that throughout her work abroad, she periodically sent money she had earned from her labor contracts to her son for the purpose of building the holiday home. Your mother-in-law indicated that when she returns to Moldova, she will have her domicile at the address of the holiday home. In your follow-up answers, you explain that your mother-in-law transfers money that she earns abroad because she does not intend to stay and live abroad in the future, and that she does not need this money at the moment. You indicated that holiday home has 2 separate entrances, and 1 floor of the house is entirely meant for your mother-in-law. You provided the layout of the living space of 2-story house, a photo of 2 separate entrances of the house, and a contract for connection to the centralized sewage system of this property signed in 2023 as proof that construction works are still ongoing. You also noted that in 2010, your husband had received from his mother the sum of 5,000 euros, which he deposited to his bank account. Therefore, according to your explanations, during the period of 2010 and 11, your husband received from his mother the total sum of 42,500 euros. With regards to the issue of the source of funds used by your mother-in-law to make the 42,500 euros cash donations during the period of 2010-2011, you provided a document from the Social Insurance Service of one of the European states, according to which your mother-in-law had received income of roughly 8,000 euros in 2011 and income of around 9,000 euros in 2010. According to the above-mentioned document from the Social Insurance Service, during the period of 2002 to 2011, your mother-in-law received a total gross income of 47,420 euros. Taking into account that your mother-in-law had transferred to your husband the sum of 42,500 euros in 2010 and 2011, she had been left with only 4,920 euros to cover her living expenses for 9 years, from 2002 to 2011. It means that she had approximately 500 euros per year. The Commission asked you to explain how, considering the cash donations made to her son, your mother-in-law had supported her living expenses during this period. In your responses, you indicated that the document from this European State Social Insurance Service reflects part of the income of your mother-in-law had earned in the first 10 years of her employment abroad. You stated that your mother-in-law had initially worked without an employment contract because her employers had not wanted to conclude one. Then, she had been able to secure a first contract which had not reflected the actual salary she had received. However, having a permanent job was important to your mother-in-law, so she had accepted this request of the employer. You claim that your mother-in-law had more sources than those indicated in the document of the Social Insurance Service. Furthermore, you stated that your mother-in-law would also replace other Moldovans when they went away on their holiday, thus earning an additional income on top of her primary contract. Additionally, you indicated that sometimes your mother-in-law would also work and be paid by the hour on her day off. You also mentioned that another source of your mother-in-law's income was her pension that she had started to receive in Moldova in 2006. In your answers, you provided a copy of your mother-in-law's pension card, according to which your mother-in-law started to receive a monthly pension of around 400 Moldovan lei from 2006, and I assume that this is roughly 20 euros. You also indicated that her current pension amounts to a monthly payment of approximately 2,200 Moldovan lei, which is around 100 euros. Thus, you concluded that your mother-in-law had earned additional income during this period, and therefore the gross income identified in the document from the Social Insurance Service of one of the European states did not reflect the total income she had earned during this period. With regards to the issue of how your mother-in-law had supported and covered her other living expenses during this period, you stated that she used to work for families as a housekeeper, caring and raising small children and elderlies, who ensured and covered the necessities of her living expenses. You also indicated that your mother-in-law had covered her other small expenses with money she had earned from hourly paid work and from extra work on her days off or holidays. You noted that the source of funds indicated in the document of the Social Insurance Service of one of the European states did not reflect the real income she had received during this period, and that she had initially worked without a labor contract, and the labor contract signed thereafter had not reflected the full amount she had received from her employer. So now I'll begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts. Hopefully this can be answered with yes or no responses, and later I will ask you some questions that will seek greater detail or explanations from you. So you can also take water if you, so it's okay? Okay. So, in March 2011, your husband has deposited the sum of 57,500 euros to his bank account, which he withdrew 1 week later and deposited it into his other bank accounts. Is that correct?
Yes, I guess that was so.
In your answers to the Commission as to the source of funds used by your husband to make the deposit of 57,500 euros to his account, you stated that out of this deposit, 20,000 had come from the sale of an apartment and that your husband received 37,500 euros from his mother. Is that correct?
Dasha. Yes.
According to the sales purchase contracts, the Chisinau apartment was sold in 2011 for the price of 330,000 Moldovan lei, roughly 20,000 euros. Your husband had a 50% of shares of this apartment, with 25% share belonging to his sibling and the remaining 25% belonging to his mother. Is that correct?
Yes.
You were asked by the Commission to explain why your husband had received the full sales price of 20,000 euros following the sale of the Chisinau apartment, when your husband had the right of property for only 50% share of this apartment. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your answers to the Commission, you indicated that your mother-in-law and your husband's sibling had contributed their share of the sales price of the Chisinau apartment towards the construction of a holiday home in which your mother-in-law plans to reside once she returns from abroad. And you provided confirmatory documents. Is that correct?
Yes.
You provided a declaration signed on personal responsibility of your husband's sibling, according to which your husband's sibling gave up the share of the sales price of the Chisinau apartment in order to be invested in the construction of the holiday home. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Please explain why your husband's sibling gave the share of the sales price of the Kishinev apartment to your husband in order to be invested in the construction of the holiday home over which your husband's sibling has no right or beneficial claim. And what was the rationale of such a decision?
Thank you for the question. I will certainly do my best to explain. At that stage, at that time, the sibling of my husband had already decided that they would not remain in the country because their daughter was already living in the United States of America. And considering the position that his wife had and that she still has, at this moment in time, they're not in the country, for instance. And at that time, at the time of the sale of the apartment, he gave up his share for the benefit of my husband. So at that time, they thought that was the only way for them to have a place to stay if they were to come back to Moldova at some point. And that's what happened over time. So that is, right now, they are established abroad in a different country. And when they come here, they can use that space. So it's a house that was initially conceived and designed to be for two families, for mother-in-law and her younger son, and the other side for us, so the other part of the house. Once the father passed away, they refused, even they gave up a part of the land plot again for the benefit of my husband. So that's how this procedure was carried out.
Now allow me to establish a few facts concerning the holiday home. So you indicated that this house has two separate entrances and one floor of the house is entirely meant for your mother-in-law, and you provided the layout of the living space of two-story house and provided a photo of two separate entrances of the house. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Please explain when you started building the holiday home.
I am not sure I'll be able to be very precise, but I think that the construction work started at some point in 2009, 2008, more or less around those years. I cannot know for certain, but I think it was around that time. After 2007, certainly not earlier than that.
And in your answers to the Commission, you indicated that you and your family have been living in the holiday home since 2014. Is that correct?
At the end of 2014, we moved into that house.
So in 2017, the holiday house was divided into two shares, and 50% was registered under your name, and other 50% under the name of your husband. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And the cadastral value of the vacation home is indicated as approximately 2 million Moldovan lei, which is roughly 160,000 euros. Is that correct?
Well, I guess that is correct. My memory is not very good with figures, but I think that is right, considering what I also remember having seen.
You provided a contract for connection to the centralized sewage system of this property signed in 2023 as proof that construction works are still ongoing. And now, considering the fact that you and your family have been living there since 2014, please explain how you have been living there if the construction works are still ongoing.
Thank you. It's quite sensitive a question. The region where the house is located is at the outskirts of the city. So that particular area was connected to the sewage system about 3 years ago. And we connected to the centralized sewage system only now because we needed to have the permit of our neighbors to connect to the system. They've been abroad, so they had to come back, and then they signed this act that allowed us, this document that allowed us to get connected to the sewage system. But we used to have a temporary sewage system. Well, it's a system that is practically in the region in the absence of a centralized sewage system. So we had to use it as well in those conditions, but now it's only partially connected to the centralized sewage system. So there's another step that we still need to make to be completely connected to that. So we still continue to use the sewage facility that we used to have before being connected to the centralized system.
With this, I'm done with establishing facts concerning the house so far, and now let me move back to donations made by your mother-in-law in the amount of 37,500 euros. So, and please confirm that indeed your husband received this amount from his mother-in-law, from your mother-in-law.
Yes, the initial amount that you refer to, that's an amount that was at home because my mother-in-law went to work abroad before 2000 when she had the first work contract. So all the amounts, all the savings that she had, all her savings were being kept by the brother of my husband and by the father of my husband. So when the apartment was sold, the father-in-law passed away, and all that amount, all those money that was supposed to be spent for the construction of the house, because as initially mentioned, the intention to build the house, in fact, was the intention of the parents of my husband. So the initial layout was not even supposed to be for two families at the very beginning, but later on, in the other upcoming years, because we had that apartment at that moment in time. So when we were thinking about making some changes or buying a new apartment, at that time the father-in-law said, because they also had some health issues, they suggested maybe building a house for two families, and we accepted. So these are savings of the family savings that were meant for the building of that house. Part of that, I mean, the foundation had only been laid and paid for by my father-in-law. So this is money from my husband's family.
Talking about 37,500 euros.
Yes.
So according to information that we had, this was received from your mother-in-law who worked abroad. So and now I want to inquire how your mother-in-law sent the cash to Moldova. What was the mode of sending the money to Moldova?
Well, as for the first stage, I mean, initially the money would be either sent by buses that would travel to Moldova at that time, or she would bring it along when she would come home to visit. So that's from discussions with her. She said that that's how the money would be brought into the country.
Do you remember how often she would come back to Moldova?
In 2007, I married into this family, but in 2006, sorry. But until 2006, I lived in the dormitory of the university, and I am not aware of a lot of details about the family. More of that came to my knowledge now, but there is a limit of discretion that we observed in relation to to the other family members, so I couldn't have known too many details. At least initially, I think that she would return often. Then she would visit once a year initially, but this year, for instance, she returned to Moldova twice.
According to information that we have from the border police, actually, she left Moldova in 2018 with her Italian passport, so we don't possess any information what was her movement before that time. So Can you provide any more details? Because we are limited to 2018, so...
Sincer, nu pot.
To be honest, I can't say anything about it. I know that she became a citizen of Italy, but when that happened, in what year that happened, I don't know. As for other details, I know that over the last years, as far as I know, should always come by airplane. Most of the times, Wizz Air should use that air company, but I cannot provide more details than that.
So we are still talking about 37,500, and after this sum was withdrawn from your husband's account, it was spent on construction of the holiday home. Is that correct?
Da.
Yes, correct.
And you attached the declaration signed on personal responsibility by your mother-in-law, to which she indicates that throughout her work abroad, she periodically sent money to her son for the purpose of building the holiday home. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
In 2010, your husband received from his mother the sum of 5,000 euros, which he deposited to his bank account. And this amount was also received in cash. Is that correct?
I guess so.
So, during the period of 2010-2011, your husband received from his mother the total sum of 42,500 euros. This is 30,500 and plus 5,000 euros. So, is that correct?
Yes.
As a proof of source of funds used by your mother-in-law to make 42,500 euro cash donations during the period of 2010-11, you provided a document from the Social Insurance Service of one of the European states, according to which during the period of 2002 to 2011, your mother-in-law received a total gross income of 47,042 euros. Is that correct?
Da.
Yes, that is correct.
And according to this information, this document, in 2010, she received up to 9,000 euros, and in 2011, she received about 8,000 euros. Is that correct?
Yes.
So out of 42,500 euros that were transferred during the period of 2010 and 11, she earned about 17,000 during those 2 years. Is that correct? So the rest, about 25,000 euros, was earned before 2010, according to this calculation. Would you agree with this calculation? Okay. Did your mother-in-law make any transfers before 2010?
I cannot provide an answer as to that. The only thing that I know, as all the details that I provided in the 4 rounds of questions were the outcome of my discussions with my husband and my mother-in-law. But I also know that initially when she was there abroad, my husband had a power of attorney to administer the bank accounts of his mother and the bank accounts of his father. And I also know that he used to have, and actually he still has, an account that was opened in Italy, and to that account, in the recent past, at least, I think like about a year or two ago, when more investments were made into the house, I know that more transfers were made using that account. But I cannot provide more details than that because I am not aware of them.
You mentioned that your mother-in-law had kept bank accounts in Moldova during this period.
Cred că da.
I guess so, because she was transferring money to her account, or she would put the money on that account when she would come here. Or, I mean, I'm not very knowledgeable about the details of that, but I know that she had a bank account like just any other person.
42,500 euros was transferred in cash, so no bank transactions were used for transferring this amount. So why she did not transfer then if she had the bank account here? Do you have any idea about that?
Probabil nu.
I might have not been understood. I meant the transfers of the last years. For the other transfers, I was not aware.
Donations made
Da,
in
te rog.
2010 and 11.
Okay.
So we will deal with the next
Da.
second period in the second
Ulterior,
round of
da.
questions. So
Bine.
did
da,
she
bine.
have bank accounts in the period of 2010 and 11?
Închiși-
I don't know if she had them in Moldova. I know she has an account now, but I don't know about at that time whether she had them in Moldova.
So, is it correct that your mother-in-law saved all her income that she had received abroad from 2002, and only in 2010 and 11 started sending all her savings to your husband? And we are roughly talking about, in addition to 17,000, so she saved about 25,000, and then she started transferring them in 2010 and 11. So do you have any idea why she started transferring only in 2010? What was the reason for that?
Eu nu știu dacă
I don't know whether she only started to transfer them in 2010, because I was saying that when there was a question about the money that was deposited after the sale of the apartment. So at that time, I knew that she was already transferring funds because she had a work contract in place. And there was no point in just keeping that money with herself. So all the savings that she would have, she would all send it home. All the funds she would save, she'd send them home.
Your husband started depositing this in 2010, and if his mother was sending this amount even before 2010, it means that your husband kept it in cash at home before starting depositing to the account? Is this what you are stating?
până în
Until 2007, all the savings were with the father-in-law and with the brother, most likely. They were all living in the same apartment. After 2007, the brother of the husband decided to leave the country. And after the sale of the apartment, so starting from that point, that's when my husband started to take care of those savings, to handle them. After 2007, that is.
Considering that your mother-in-law had transferred to your husband 42,500 euros in 2010 and 11, she was left with only 4,920 euros to cover her living expenses for 9 years. This is from 2002 to 2011. The Commission asked you to explain how your mother-in-law was able to live with only 4,920 euros for 9 years, and how she supported her living expenses during this period. Is that correct?
Da.
Yes.
According to your statement, the document from one of the European states, Social Insurance Service, reflects only part of your mother-in-law's income, and that she had additional income on top of her primary contracts. You mentioned that your mother-in-law would replace other Moldovans when they went away on their holiday. Sometimes she would also work and be paid by the hour on her days off and public holidays. In 2006, your mother-in-law also started receiving a monthly Moldovan pension of 400 Moldovan leis, and you also claim that her current pension is approximately 2,200 leis per month. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Please explain if your mother-in-law received her pension on bank account, or did someone send to her this money from Moldova? And also explain how the pension received from Moldova covered her expenses incurred abroad.
Am menționat și
As I said in the last explanation that I provided, the pension that she was receiving in Moldova was never transferred to her or sent to her in any way. It would just accumulate there. It might have been either a card or an account that the money was being kept on. I don't know the details of that. But the pension, she would only use her pension when she would travel to Moldova. Her pension was never sent to her to that European country. It's her own money. However, when it comes to covering her own expenses, I would like to reiterate that it's as in the facts, as stated previously in the facts, that's what was happening. She was living in those households that she was working for. And that was also set out in the labor contract that she had, that she would live there. And then the hourly pay, the additional work, that was just additional money that she would earn. Or she would replace, for instance, the explanation. I mean, it's not an explanation, it was rather a discussion because I cannot demand her to explain things to me, but we had a discussion about it for me to be able to also grasp the situation. And she told me that, for instance, when she would travel to Moldova home, somebody had to do the work that she was doing, be it caring for an elderly person or for a child. Somebody had to take her place for a while, a person she would trust, because she wanted to be able to go back to the job. So that is the exactly same pattern that would apply with others. So on when there were some days off or holidays, for instance, and somebody would have to leave, she would replace them.
And the last question, please explain if your mother-in-law donated any property or assets to her other child, and if not, why not?
No, she did not donate anything, and I will reiterate again the reason for that. It is because all the assets that they've ever had and that they have now, because this is all belonging to the family. There's a garage that I've also mentioned, the apartment and the land plot that the house was built on. So at this moment in time, they all belong to us, including that space that is supposed to be for the mother-in-law, and it is, because when she comes home, she uses it. Now we are almost done with the other side of the house, because works are still underway for furnishing the place. So there is that space that she also uses, and her son uses it as well. He is away, and only when he comes to Moldova, he stays there. But now he doesn't have an asset in Moldova. And the last time when he spent 3 months in Chisinau, he stayed with his wife in the house where we live, in our house.
Anything to add or further clarify with respect to this issue?
Nu, nu.
No.
Any questions from the Commission members? Nadia, I think Nadia has.
Doar
Just to clarify, the amount of 2 million lei, which is the market value, as we understand, the market value of the house, that's the amount that you invested in the construction of the house, or not? Not. It's just an estimate. Yes, thank you for the question. It's an estimate, an evaluation, reflects the evaluation carried out by the authorities back in 2014. At the time, the house wasn't finished, like the fence was not there yet. However, as he's involved in the business environment, he thought it was right to have it evaluated. At some point in 2012, though, I think we moved later, like 2 years later, we moved in that house. It's an evaluation and an appraisal that was carried out by the authorities. It's not us who assigned that value to it. As for the investments made into that house, that's something that has been, well, it's funds that have been invested over years, over time. So from the bank statements, I guess you can see it is quite obvious that the money, most of the money, especially for the last 2 or 3 years, so the money has been withdrawn from the accounts, cashed out, and invested in the construction works. But that the evaluation was carried out by the authorities and does not reflect the investments that we made.
Funds that were sent by your mother-in-law to your husband during this time period and that were received by him were invested in the holiday house, if I understand correctly.
A big part of that, those were amounts of money that were invested in the house.
You say a big part of it. Were her funds used for something else, or are there savings maintained for her?
Nu, ziceam,
Well, I said a big part of that because we invested in the house too as much as we afforded. We also invested. It was fair and logical for us to invest our own share into that because it couldn't have been the case that the mother-in-law would have built alone the house for us. So we also invested into that, our own funds. The house was built out of the funds and resources that we ourselves earned, in addition to the funds that my mother-in-law would transfer to my husband.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I will go into second issue, which also covers funds used for the house. So we will be back with some additional questions concerning the house. So the next issue, the second issue, concerns sum of 73,000 euros received by your husband from his mother, and this time we cover the period from 2016 to 2021. So during the period of 2016-2021, your mother-in-law transferred to your husband the total sum of 73,215 euros. You explained that source of funds used for 25,000 euro deposit to your husband, that your husband made in 2020 and 2021 to his bank account, was the money he had received via bank transfers from his mother. You further indicated that during the period 2017-2021, your mother-in-law had sent to your husband the total sum of 30,865 euros, which included 8,000 euros as a loan for the purpose of purchasing a Toyota model car, which has not yet been paid, and an amount of 22,865 euros as a donation for the purpose of building the holiday home. You mentioned that this money had been placed to your husband's deposit account from which it had been periodically withdrawn. Usually you can also follow the document that we gave to you, so you have these facts there, so it may facilitate the process, so please. So the facts, no, not, Constantine, can you help? So. You also stated that deposit of 17,350 euros made by your husband during the period of 2016-2018 had actually belonged to your mother-in-law and had been intended as an investment into the construction and completion of the holiday home. You provided a document from the Social Insurance Service of one of the European states, according to which during the period 2012-2020, your mother-in-law had received total gross income of 112,000 euros. After deducting the transferred money to your husband in the amount of roughly 73,000 euros during the period 2012-2020, your mother-in-law had roughly 39,000 left from her total earnings. It means that she had kept approximately 4,000 euros per year for these 9 years to cover her living expenses. The Commission asked you to explain the source of funds used by your mother-in-law to make 73,000 transfers to her son during the period 2016-2021 and to explain how she had supported her living costs during this period. You were also asked to indicate if you had received any other money from your mother-in-law. You indicated that you and your husband had received some symbolic amounts on the occasion of your birthdays and the birthdays of your children. You also stated that greater amounts had been given on more significant occasions. You mentioned that you did not keep separate records for these donations. As to how your mother-in-law had supported her living expenses during this period, you answered that she used to live in her employer's houses and that they had also covered her daily expenses. You stated that your mother-in-law had never rented her own living space, so she had not had to pay any rent. You further indicated that your mother-in-law has also been receiving her pension since 2006 for her more than 30 years of work in the Moldovan educational system, and she had started receiving her European pension in the amount of 284 euros per month as of 1st August 2020. You also noted that your mother-in-law is still working abroad and you provided confirmation documents. Now I will start asking you some questions. During the period 2016-2021, your mother-in-law transferred to your husband the total amount of 73,000 euros. Out of this amount, 25,000 deposit was made in 2020 and 2021 from money your husband received via bank transfers from his mother. During the period 2017-2021, your mother-in-law sent to your husband approximately 31,000 euros as a loan for 30,000, which included 88,000 euro as a loan and 22,000 as a donation for the purpose of building the holiday home. You stated that a deposit of 17,000 euros made to your husband's bank account during the period 2016 to 2018 belongs to your mother-in-law, and this had been intended as an investment into the construction and completion of the holiday home. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true.
Please explain what 25,000 euros your husband received from his mother in 2020 and 2021 was used for.
Part of that money was used for the furniture on the floor where she lives, and another part, I don't know, probably still on the accounts. I really don't know details about exactly what and at what stage things are, but certain things were done for the house, so they are continuously being done.
Please explain why your husband received a loan of 8,000 euros from his mother for the purpose of purchasing a car in 2017 when you and your husband had considerable income yourself. So why he obtained this loan? Yeah.
Thank you. Mother-in-law was at home back then. She had the money on herself, and when we found this possibility to buy the car, which we still have, and I mentioned it in my declaration, in order not to withdraw money from the bank, since we already had money in the house, So we didn't need to go to the bank and take another amount. And my mother-in-law said that we can use whatever amount we need. It's important for her to know how much, to know about it. And then the car that we found and my husband was going to buy, from what I remember, had some defects that the person who was supposed to bring it identified. So my husband used that money. Maybe he kept it for later. I know it lasted for 1 or 2 or 3 months till he paid for that car and purchased it. So we had the money. Currently, from the statements and from the saved amounts, we can reimburse this amount. But she said that currently that is not necessary. As I said, she told us to use the money for current needs. And in case if she needs a big amount that she can't cover, then certainly we will have to reimburse her this money. Thank you. Microphone, Nona, please.
A document from the Social Insurance Service of one of the European states during the period of 2012-2020, your mother-in-law had received total gross income of 112,000 euros. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So out of total amount of 73,000 euros transferred in the period of 2017-2021, 40,215 euros and 17,000 euros, your mother-in-law, so total of 40,215 euros were intended as an investment into the holiday home. So actually, let me explain, this is the sum of 22,000 received during the period of 2017 and 17,000 of your mother-in-law's income that was intended for the house. So it's roughly 40,000. So it is out of 73,000 euros that you indicated that was intended for construction of the house. Is that correct?
Probabil că da.
It probably is, as I explained in my answers. That's how it is. Just to say exactly right now the purpose for which the money was used, I mean, what was used for the house, what is still on my husband's account and was not used, I can't do that. I did not make any evaluation to this respect.
Make a calculation. In the first round of questions, actually we concluded that 42,500 was intended to construct the house, and in the second round of questions, now we are focused on period of 2016-21, total amount of 40,000 was invested in the house, so it's roughly 82,000 invested of your mother-in-law's money invested in the house. So is this correct assessment of the facts? So taking into account that the cadastral value is approximately 2 million leis, which is roughly 160,000, so is it right assumption that the difference between 106,000 and 82,000 was covered by you from your salary? Or it's not like that?
Probably yes, but as I said, the cadastral value is not evaluation that we did. It's the evaluation carried out by the representatives of the authorities when they visited and carried that out. At the same time, I mentioned that to a large extent money was invested by the mother-in-law and by us in the house. And the calculation that he I'd say you're right. I cannot deny it because I did not make any calculation to say whether that is true or not.
Estimate how much was your and your husband's investment in the house, roughly?
I don't think I can do that, not even as an approximation, because the savings that we had over time, we invested. And now, at this stage, to be clear, the place where we live is furnished based on furniture from the old apartment, which means we will have a next stage when we are going to finish the part that we committed to help mother to furbish her living space, and then we will start doing that for our living space. So I really can't say what's the precise amount, because should it have been an investment over 2 or 3 years, when you have an amount and you invest it, it is obvious how big that investment was. But since this is lasting since 2008, 2009, and until nowadays, we keep investing and doing things, I really can't estimate.
The house under construction between 2011 and 2016, when your mother-in-law actually made no transfers with the purpose of investing in the house. So what was going on in this period? So, and why in general it took so long to complete the house?
So we moved into the house in 2014 because we were forced by the situation back then, because it is at the outskirts and there have been cases when windows were broken, and for these reasons we decided to finish at least a part so that we can be there in order not to have such situations happening to us, because they were not just unpleasant but also making you suffer damage. That's the first thing I'd like to refer to. Secondly, it was necessary to handle the works in the yard because the kids were small and we needed some area for them where they could use. And when you live outside the city, not in a block of flats, it's a pity they can't play in the yard. So after we finished some work in the yard that were first need, because we still had construction materials, the fence was not standing it for security reasons, and then we moved to interior works. And in the first stage, when 2016, that you referred to, we did the repairs in the place where we still live, that part of the house, and then we moved to repair the other part of the house. Microphone, please.
Let me continue with your mother-in-law and her capacity to actually live in that European country. So after deducting the transferred money to your husband in the amount of 73,000 euros during 2012-2020, your mother-in-law had roughly 40,000 euros left from her total earnings. It means that she had approximately 4,000 per year for these 10 years to cover her living expenses. So, and you were asked to explain how she was able to support her living expenses during the period of 2012-2020, and is that correct?
Da.
Yes.
Your mother-in-law used to live in her employer's houses and had never rented her own living space. You also claimed that the employers had also covered her daily expenses. Is that correct?
Da.
It is true.
You also stated that your mother-in-law had additional income from her Moldovan pension that she has been receiving since 2006, and European pension in the amount of 284 euros per month that has been receiving since 1st August 2020. Is that correct?
Da.
It is correct.
So, you acknowledge that during the period of 2010-2021, your husband received about 150,000 euros from his mother, and this is a sum of 42,573,000 that he received during 2016-2021. So at the same time, during the same period, you and your husband received substantial amount of money from your salaries, which were sufficient to cover many of your expenses. So please explain the necessity of receiving money from your mother-in-law in view of the fact that you and your husband had sufficient income yourselves.
Da.
Thank you. The explanation is the same. She was transferring all her savings here, home. 1 year ago, she actually had the intent to come back for good. So that was one of these. There was a thing that made her go back to her employment contract given the health insurance that she had there. So during the COVID period, or after having COVID, she got some medical complications. So she had some blood pressure that doctors couldn't work with, and that was the reason why she went back to Italy, and she continues to work there, and I attached her employment contract. But since she is not going to stay there forever, her intent, and well, it's about the age, honestly. Lately, we actually insisted quite a lot that last time for her not to go. It's her decision, we respect it, but of course, well, she transfers here all resources here because there is no reason for her to keep the money there. Microphone.
Do you have anything to add or further clarify with respect to this issue?
No.
No.
If other colleagues want to...
Anyone else from the Commission would like to answer? No? Okay. Then I would like to give you the opportunity now to make a brief closing statement on your behalf, so please go ahead.
I don't want to say anything but thank you for the effort that you make. I wish you and ourselves a lot of success and the best of health. That's enough.
Thank you very much. That will bring us to the end of the hearing. I thank you for being here with us this afternoon and answering all our questions and, of course, all the written questions as well. The Commission will now withdraw for deliberations, and we intend, in principle, to have a decision delivered to you within a month after the date of this hearing. I thank you again, and hereby the hearing is closed. Thank you.